This episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversations is brought to you in part by In Search of the New Compassionate Male. For more information, go to newcompassionatemale.com.
Hello, world. It's me, Dennis, and today is a very special, reasonably spontaneous conversation with me because this is a person, Jill Gurr, who I knew since 1978 when I went out to LA and began doing. We were both in an improv workshop, and Jill was able to be instrumental in getting me onto reasonably spontaneous conversation because she worked for Theta Cable at that time. She directed a lot of the early reasonably spontaneous conversations, and then continued on to have this extraordinary storied career. And now she's being featured in the 100 most influential people in public service, and in a book, and continuing her memoirs. This is Jill Gurr. So, Renee, would you bring Jill on, please, for me? Hello, Jill.
I love seeing you again. It's so wonderful.
Isn't it wonderful to be able to have old friends and to see exactly what we're doing? Congratulations on all that's happening right now, all the work that you're doing on Create Now. But take me back. Here's the thing that I want to do, because I love setups and I love chronologies, and your organization, Create Now, that you began to be able to marry artists with disadvantaged youth and youth who have gone through struggled. Where did that idea come from?
So I had actually been volunteering. I was working on film productions as a script supervisor for many years, traveling all around the world with big movie stars, and I felt compelled to make a difference. And so I volunteered with a nonprofit in LA called Free Arts for Abused Children. And I learned about all of these foster group homes and shelters for kids that were abused and neglected. And I would do arts and crafts projects on a Saturday morning every now and then with them. And then I worked on two movies that changed my life. One of them was a film called Menace to Society, which was about the Black Lives Matter movement, which was produced back in 1978, the same time that we met.
Exactly. And this was, of course, before Black Lives Matter, but that was exactly the point, though.
Yeah, it was actually in I get the dates mixed up. It was right when the LA riots were happening.
Exactly.
So I worked in 1992. So I worked on that movie, and I was the only white person on this crew, and I was shocked because it showed cops beating the crap out of these Black kids that weren't doing anything at that moment. And I said, does this really happen? And they said, yeah, lady, all the time. So I started to think, wow, I really need to make an impact. And I started to learn about incarcerated youth and the gang problems, not only in Los Angeles, but all over the country, and how the gangs are controlling crime and drugs and everything else. Then a couple of years later, and so then I was able, after the LA riots, to teach a screenwriting workshop to a group of 30 teenage boys who were incarcerated for all kinds of crimes, rape, assault, you name it. And at the end of this 3-month program, not only did we co-write a compelling script about their lives, their story, and their words, but these kids learned how to read and write. They wanted to go back to school and apply to college. And one gang leader who had initially boycotted my workshop came back and had gang tattoos removed from his neck and his hand. So a few years later, I worked on another movie called My Familia. It starred Jennifer Lopez and a whole bunch of amazing cast and crew. We were shooting in East Los Angeles. It was like a Tuesday night at 3 a.m, and there was an 8-year-old boy and his 11-year-old brother hanging out with the film crew. I said, where are your parents? And the 8-year-old said, I don't know where my mother is, and my father don't give an F. Again, I was shocked. I mean, there were kids in the foster system. These children had no guidance, and in the street in the middle of the night, obviously in gangs, pulled into gangs. So I was compelled to teach a second screenwriting workshop, this time at a co-ed detention facility. And I got the same results. These kids told their stories. One of these young ladies is now a truck driver. She's a screenwriter. She even had an agent after our workshop. So it was amazing. I shared these stories with another screenwriter that I met. And the next week I got a call from a producer at the AFI, American Film Institute, named Leslie Stevens, who had produced the Outer Limits TV series and a bunch of other stuff. He said, I want to give you $5,000 to start a nonprofit organization. And that was it. I had to do it. So I started Create Now. It was originally called Right Now, WRITE. Mm-hmm. And I realized later that kids, many of them couldn't read and write. They were into dance or music or whatever, singing. So I changed the name officially in 1998 to Create Now. And we are currently, as of October 26th, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. We've reached over 50,000 kids since that time.
My goodness, Jill. And the thing that I find fascinating about it is that while you can tell this story in a few minutes, or at least the arc of the story, is that if you want to start a nonprofit, if you want to do all the things that it takes to be able to produce workshop after workshop, get kids to different venues and to work, it takes an incredible amount of effort. I mean, the fact that you did this and you did this on such a shoestring and you continued to have to do it month after month, times when you didn't even know what the next step would be or when the next rent payment would be.
Yes, it was such a struggle. And I shared this story in my upcoming memoir called What You Give Is What You Get, which will be coming out next year. I had an incredible journey doing this. I was almost homeless at one point. I had to declare bankruptcy at one point. But I was driven to make a difference. And each time I would start a new program, I volunteered for 19 years, just nonstop volunteering. And I was homeless because I had to give up script supervising our feature films and transition to working on commercial productions, because at least then I can earn some money and work a day or two and still keep Create Now going. But that meant a year of trying to build those relationships. So, but every time I would do a new program, or I would bring kids to the Hollywood Bowl or whatever it was and see their reactions and the changes they were going through, I couldn't give it up. I had to keep going. It not only was changing my life, it was changing thousands of lives, and not just these children's lives, their parents, their neighbors, their schoolmates, everybody. It was rippling out.
Oh, what an amazing opportunity, Jill. So you went on to continue this organization and to be able to grow it. Now you're seeing graduates from this organization that come back and talk to you about what it's meant to them. Could you share a little about some of the stories of the people that have gone through the workshop or been touched by it and moved on?
Well, my favorite story is that of Tasha. So Tasha Caulfield, you can see her website at tashacaulfield.com. She grew up in a very bad neighborhood with a very abusive family. And starting at the age of 12, she kept running away from home. And she'd meet boys on the street and get in trouble. And when I met her at a juvenile detention facility, she had already been at 14 years old. So between 12 and 14, she was in 9 juvenile detention facilities. And we had a volunteer who had worked on some TV shows like Married with Children and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She taught a TV writing workshop. And Tasha bonded with her, and I bonded with her deeply and became her mentor as well. Her original mentor actually dropped her. It's a whole story, but I have continued mentoring Tasha. She's now 35 years old, I believe, or 36. She lives in Florida. She got a scholarship from Warner Brothers to graduate from USC Film School. She traveled all around the country doing stand-up comedy. She produced and directed a documentary on how people can break into stand-up. She has published 5 books. She's written about 6 screenplays, and she's now a real estate broker. And she is like my daughter. She sends me Mother's Day cards, birthday cards. We see each other at Thanksgiving. She's become a daughter for me, and I'm her surrogate mother. So that's just one example. And another one is this young man, Durante, who I met when he was incarcerated at a juvenile detention facility for in a gang fight, hitting somebody over the head with a crowbar. He was a very tough young man.
Yes.
And I put together a talent show. I had 120 youth from one detention camp, and next door was another detention camp with 120 youth. I was able to bring them all together. So we actually had 220 teenage boys locked up for serious crimes. And I had music, poetry, and art contests. I got them all, and I had judges, professionals from these industries to choose the winners. And they all got cash prizes, trophies, and I gave them opportunities to record their music in the studio, to do a live poetry reading at a poetry house, and to get a scholarship to go to art school. Durante and I bonded. You can actually see him if you go to my website at jillgurr.com. There's a video. He was interviewed on NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams, where they showcased him.
Right.
So he ended up becoming a truck driver and becoming very successful at it. And he and his brother decided to start a nonprofit called Trucker Dads, where they were going to teach ex-cons how to become truck drivers. And I've lost touch with Durante. I'm really sad about that. I'm hoping that he has survived COVID. I haven't been able to reach him. He always called me on my birthday, and I haven't heard from him this past year. So I haven't heard from him and don't know what's going on, but I am up. But just the fact that he had turned his life of crime and violence into one of trying to help ex-cons to get jobs and to help the community by hiring more truckers, which, as you know, during COVID, we desperately need truck drivers right now. So those are two examples of youth that I've helped.
One of the things that really touches me is the idea that you had this in your own life, because you, as you looking back on your life in your memoir, are you seeing a lot of the same issues that you had, even though and growing up as a woman and growing up with the kind of dysfunction in the family that we all get an opportunity to be able to grow through? That must have touched you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Dennis. This writing my memoir has been a catharsis for me. I was raised by two wonderful parents on Long Island, New York. They gave me a good home. That my dad was an electrician. He worked hard to put me and my sister through college. But as I was writing my memoir, I realized that I was never shown any love or affection. My parents never said, "I love you." They never hugged me or kissed me. And as I was digging further into my ancestry, I realized that my mother had been neglected by her mother. My grandmother was like a floozy. She was working as a waiter at these expensive restaurants, trying to find rich men. And so my mother was raised by her older sister and had no parenting skills, no training on how to raise a daughter. After the war was over, she got married at 18, had my sister when she was 19, didn't know how to raise children. My father, his mother had 5 husbands. He was raised by his older brother. So as I uncovered this, I realized that when I was between the ages of 9 and 13, I became very sick and I was bedridden for 5 years, pretty much. I felt perfectly fine, but I had a kidney disease and our family doctor said I had to stay totally bedridden. All of a sudden, my mother was coming in every hour. "Are you okay, honey?" and hugging me and kissing me. So, and then since then, we developed a very close relationship. She was the closest person in my life. I recently had therapy. I found a shamanic healer who deals with childhood trauma. And I realized that my mother used to, as I was writing the book, I was telling about a story because I'm also a screenwriter and I've had several scripts produced. And I was hired by a director to write a script. He took me to Europe and I wrote a script about the life of Edith Piaf, the French singer. And as I'm writing this story about how Edith Piaf was physically abused by her father, who would slap her, I remembered that my mother used to slap me for being fresh. And her nickname for me was Ugly Duckling. So I grew up my whole life feeling ugly. And then through my therapy, I realized that my sister rebelled against that. My mother would say, if you don't behave, you're going to get the belt. Wait till your father gets home. And so I would be the good little girl that would run in my room and lock the door and hide. And my sister was very rebellious, and she used to fight back. And I would hold my ears and try to hide because I would hear my sister screaming from the physical abuse she was receiving. So all of this has been coming up for me now, and I'm sharing it in my book. And my therapist helped me to realize that I subconsciously created this disease along with accidents. I had horrible accidents. I lived in Paris for a year. I got really sick there. I lived in Mexico. I got dysentery and almost died. I had all of these things, an accident in Costa Rica that kept me bedridden for 4 years with broken leg and ankle. All of that was subconsciously set up to get my parents' attention, because each time I got sick or was in an accident, I had to go live with them to help them to heal me.
Yeah.
And so it really helps to write these out. And I encourage any of your viewers that if you have issues that you're dealing with, write it out, keep a journal. I think it will help you to uncover some of the trauma you may have experienced, because growing up in the 50s, it was very common for parents to say, spare the child, spoil the child, spare, I forgot what that saying is.
Spare the rod and spoil the child.
We were raised. Now that's abuse, and children are removed from their families because of those. But back then, and so I realized that subconsciously I was so driven to help children who were abused and neglected, and through the arts, because writing was my escape. I started writing stories and poems starting at age 7. And I've been writing ever since. I still have all of my stories, poems, articles. I got published when I was 14. I mean, it's like writing was my escape. And I think that whether it's the arts or whether it's sports or whatever it is, we all have our escapes. And I talk about mentoring and the impact of mentoring. I published a book called Mentor Youth Now, a guidebook for transforming young lives, which is available on Amazon. And what I realized is that children, even if you connect with a kid once in a while through a text or a phone call, can have a profound impact on them. Like with Durante, when he got out of detention and I moved on with my life, every now and then he would call me and say, hey, Jill, I have this friend who got a girl pregnant. He needs some advice. What can you tell him? And I knew it was him, but I would give him that guidance and we would talk for an hour and it helped him. I have a young man named Demond who calls me every now and then. He had a recent problem with his son, who's a teenager, and giving him a hard time. I was able to give him resources to help him. So even just doing that can really help a kid to know that there's somebody out there that cares about them.
The caring is such an important part. I mean, for us to be able to know who we are and to know that we are cared for. The thing that I'm interested in, when you're delving into the therapy, did you get a sense of where your resilience comes from?
I realized, my therapist was very encouraging. She kept showing me how even at a young age, at 7 or 8, I was an entrepreneur. I was selling things and making money and being creative. And I would, like when I was 13, I would get these clear marbles, colorful marbles, and I would fry them in a hot frying pan and then drop them into ice water and they would crack inside. And then I would glue them onto these little jewelry fittings to make necklaces and earrings and rings. And I would go to school, I'd put them on a board, 13 or 14 years old, and I'd sell them to my schoolmates to make some money. So I was always thinking ahead and using my creativity. And again, I have discovered that I believe children at a very early age show their talents. Like I'm working now with a young man in Pakistan who's editing videos for me, because I'm going to be launching my blog on my website, and I'm going to be doing social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to show some of my stories. And so this young man started editing when he was 11 years old. He's now 18. I had a number of different editors I hired who really were not very good. They were cheap, but they weren't very good. This kid knows what he's doing. He's doing editing projects for HBO I forgot the other one, a huge company. And his dream, he's now he's using this money to put himself through college so he can learn digital architecture. And I said, what's that? His dream is to create a 3D digital world from his imagination to help make this a better planet. So this kid at 11 found his gift with digital technology. How many other kids are out there that don't have these opportunities?
How many?
Yeah, I think everybody. I think every child has that capacity. If the parent or that child can learn to explore that without judgment, without self-judgment or judgment from others. Who cares what other people think? Do what excites you. Follow your passion. Let it go. Just do it to the best of your ability. Let it go. Don't have expectations. Don't think, oh, I didn't get hired on that job, I must not be talented. Or I got my script got rejected, I must not be a good writer. Who cares? Just know that the right one will come along. And whatever the reaction is, whatever, if you're dismissed or neglected or rejected, doesn't matter. See the positive aspects from it. You're learning from that rejection to be stronger within. To know, like I had a friend, I still have this friend, she's an actor and a director. And I would share a couple of my scripts with her when I was starting out. And she'd say, you're really not very good. I think you should give it up. You just don't have the talent. And my attitude became, screw you. I love it. This is my passion. I know I'm good. And here I am. You know, I've had scripts optioned. I've had scripts produced. And I left Create Now so I could focus on developing my scripts because I wrote these 30 years ago, some of them, 25, 30 years ago. And they were topics that the producers would say, no one cares about climate change. No one cares about prison reform. Women don't go to movies. We're not going to make movies with female leads. So I kept getting rejected. And now as I'm rereading my scripts and updating them, it's like, oh my God, this is so current. This is what the world needs right now. And I think everything is timing.
Timing, absolutely, because timing. One of the things that I've learned over my life, and certainly at 73, is that timing is the key. We have to be able to know when is it that we are willing to continue to get back up off the floor, because it's not the amount of failures we have, it's not what we have, but it's the willing to get up that one more time. How do you do that? What is your do you have a meditation practice? Do you have the practice of your own spiritual practice? Jill, talk about that.
Well, I've tried meditation classes and I plan to take them again. I've been using the Calm app every day, which I love. I do the daily Calm. And the woman Tamara Levitt, who teaches it, she just gives these amazing thoughts about helping me to realize how important it is to relax and let go and focus on what your goals are, and to just appreciate what we have. And that's what I think the important thing is. I posted a letter yesterday that my father, I found last year in a box of letters and materials for my dad. And he was a veteran in the Air Force. He worked in the Air Force. He was a mechanic. And my dad was a comedian. He always liked to make people laugh. And he wrote this letter about how the war was over. Everybody was celebrating. They were all coming home and getting drunk and partying. And his platoon was given an assignment that there was a plane load of Allied prisoners who were on their way back home and their plane crashed. And they were all killed. The plane caught on fire. And he was one of the first people there. And he had to pick up the body parts and the remnants of the people they were able to pull out. And he said, we all think that our problems are the worst, that we have it bad. But all I can think about is these young kids, 18 to 19 years old, whose families will never see them again. It makes me want to cry, when I even tell this story. Their families will never see them again. And we complain about our problems, and I do too. I complain about my life. But when I think about these young people and the fact that they'll never get to enjoy their lives and their families will never get to see them again, I can never complain again. And he never, in all of his life, he died when he was 80, never ever shared this letter or this story with my family or anybody else. He just made everybody laugh wherever he went. He would go up to strangers and tell jokes and make everybody laugh.
What was his name?
Larry Gurr. They called him Crazy Larry.
God, how amazing! Now you're looking back at your work right now, and your entire where where are you going? What are the next steps? You want to finish your memoir and then be able to get some of your screenplays? Are you still shopping them like kids? What's the name of that kids rule?
That's one of my favorite scripts.
Me
I
too.
don't want to give too much, I don't want to give too much away about it
Oh
because
no no
it's
no
very,
no! Let's not. I'm just looking at the how Jill looks at November, December 2021, and looking forward as far as your daily activities.
so what I'm doing now, I'm working part-time for Create Now, 3 days a week, writing grants. So at least I
Mhm.
have an income. And I'm able to help transition the new CEO. I've stepped down. The new CEO is not experienced enough to really know, and he doesn't. I'm introducing him to donors and contacts, and slowly moving away. I'm looking for a manager or an agent. That's my number one goal right now because I have 16 original scripts. They're all unique and they're all very commercial. So, for instance, I'm in the process of finishing a script that I co-wrote many years ago. I don't know how many of your viewers have ever heard of Sybil Danning. She was a famous B-movie actor in the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had a friend, Mark, who was friends with her, and she had investors in Argentina. So we wrote an action script for her set in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. And we wrote it in 2 weeks, but it was like bam, 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 right? And amazing, right? So my friend unfortunately passed away from AIDS, but Sybil doesn't have any rights to the script. I own it. And I'm doing a rewrite of it right now. And I just have learned that Netflix and all of the channels are desperately looking for female action movies right now. It's one of the hottest things. You know, they want, like with Charlize Theron and Angelina Jolie and Halle Berry, all these actors are looking for action scripts. So as I'm currently rewriting it, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is Mission Impossible fused with Fast and Furious with a female lead. And
Beautiful.
this is such a great script, and I don't want to give too much away, but she ends up in Buenos Aires meeting this little orphan, 11-year-old orphan girl who becomes her sidekick. And so they get into all of these mishaps together. It's constant gunfire and fighting and car chases, and this little girl helps her. And in the end, she adopts her and brings her back to New York. So room for sequels, and I really think this is going to be a blockbuster because people want that kind of escape. They want to just have fun and relax and see this fun, exciting movie with thrills and the locations in Buenos Aires. I worked on 2 feature films as a script supervisor in Buenos Aires. Highlander 2 and a movie with Antonio Banderas and Jennifer Connelly called Of Love and Shadows. And I love this city. I lived there for 6 months. But it turns out that we wrote this script like 5 years before I worked on those movies. We got a tourist guidebook. And we wrote all the scenes based around the tourist attractions. So when I was actually working on the movies there in production, I was like, oh my God, this is where the Recoleta Cemetery is. This is what I wrote about in my script.
How wonderful. Oh, Jill, it's so exciting to see because this is the time in our lives because both of us are the same age, are virtually the same age, and that we get a chance to say that this is the time when we can most create. This is the time when we can really dig in and do our best work. I love the idea that retiring is like an Indianapolis 500 term. You go into the pits and you put 4 more tires on and you get back out onto the road. This is our time, and this is a time when women are coming into their power around the world.
Absolutely. And you know what, back in the 60s, I was marching on Washington for women's rights and get out of Vietnam and get rid of Nixon and all this other stuff. And now that we've cycled back again, it's like one of my scripts deals with abortion rights and all of the stuff that we're right back where we were, but it's a new world. And they're saying that 70 is the new 40. And I really feel I want to be like Betty White and Norman Lear. I plan to go way into my 90s and maybe into my hundreds, being active and virile and be an inspiration for people younger than me to say, you don't have to give it up and feel like you're some old person because you're of your age. That's just society's judgment on you.
Why would we lose all of the institutional knowledge that we have? I mean, if there is value in youth, if there is value in middle age, why would there not be value in our elderhood? And this is, I think this is an important part of what we're learning as a society.
Well, what I find interesting is that it seems, like the Gen Z and the millennials, they seem to be much more focused on the now and fame and fortune and not having to do very much to get it. They want to be beautiful and model and get paid lots of money to do nothing. And they're constantly in their phones. And then I look back when I was their age and I was doing what I was a hippie. I went to Woodstock, and I was like a flower child and peace and love. And my parents would say, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And so we can't be judgmental about it. We can't
Exactly.
no, it's a new generation. But I think that you're absolutely right that our society puts down seniors and the wisdom that we bring, whereas every other society around the world worships their seniors. They welcome the knowledge that they have to share because we have been through it. And we could save younger people a lot of time and effort. They don't have to take our advice, but just listen and learn.
Exactly. Just like we listen and learn from them. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship. I think it's a wonderful stew. Then this is the ingredient. I think that we in the elderhood, if we can bring this in, that we have so much to contribute. And Jill, God bless you. I am so proud to have known you all these years and to be around you for your indomitability, for your willingness to continue on, irrespective of what is said or what obstacles are come up into your path. I've seen you get up and continue to look for another opportunity to be able to deliver. And that's exactly what I need in my life. And you are exactly what I need in my life. And you are exactly what is needed in the world. And I'm so proud to have this opportunity to have this reasonably spontaneous conversation with you in particular.
Thank you so much, Dennis. And I'm very grateful for you to give me the opportunity to share my passions with your viewers and whoever else is interested in learning about them. Because I think that, again, by sharing information, and my blog will be up soon and people can connect with me directly, but by sharing our passions and our challenges, we can help each other. Because
Absolutely.
even on your website or wherever on my blog, people say, I can't deal with this. How do I deal with it? Even if I can't answer it, other people can answer it. We're a community, we're a society, and we can all help each other.
We're all in this together. There's an interconnectedness that we've devalued. And once we bring that up, this is one of the reasons why I think we need more women in leadership roles, leadership at the network, leadership in Congress, leadership in at the tops of the businesses, leadership in our country. Because if we have both men and women at the table, we're going to make better decisions than we make when we have men only by ourselves.
Absolutely. And I had this conversation with a friend recently about women and women's power and how men are so threatened by it. You are one of the few men out there that really relishes and appreciates women, as opposed to being fearful of them and trying to put them down and to stop their power. So you are truly a rare man. And I really hope
let's make it less rare. I want to let's get into medium rare and get into medium, and then until we're all well done. Once men are well done, that I think we'll be in much better shape.
Right.
Jill Gurr, I love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to continue to know you and to continue your friendship and to celebrate all you're doing and to be inspired by you.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm so grateful too. And I look forward to seeing you again in person and continuing our journey together.
All right. We'll see you. All right. Thank you, Jill Gurr. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we will see everybody next time.
This episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversations has been brought to you in part by In Search of the New Compassionate Male. For more information, go to newcompassionatemale.com.